Oh. Yes, yes, yes. I think we may be live now. Yes.
So Judy's gonna text. I just texted. Okay, we are live. Thanks to tech support, they're wonderful. Welcome. This is the Harford County Delegation meeting. We are on the website live on their YouTube. This morning, we actually do have our actually a pretty full agenda. So we're going to move right along. We have the pleasure of having our student pages with us this morning. Hopefully they can stay on for a while. What we could do is we could actually have them each speak, the ones that are here this morning, say a few words, and then we can go through the delegation if you have any words that you would like to say to our pages and see how they have been enjoying their weeks. I believe all of them are finished 1 week possibly down here in Annapolis. So hopefully everybody got to see them. So why don't we go ahead and start with those. Now, some of them actually had class and they weren't able to be here this morning. But we will start with those who are here. So if you're actually a page and if you want to, can you raise your hand and then we'll call on you and we'll just go through. I see Liliana. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Riley.
You. You have a few words for us about your experiences down here in Annapolis.
Yes, this has been a fabulous time. I'm actually in my second week now. I've had a lot of fun watching the floor debates and the committee hearings and even debating bills ourselves. One of the bills that that I was assigned was HB 84, the one having to do with the educational code and students, or what students can be charged under the educational code. Had a fabulous time doing research on that, being able to debate it like a real senator. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited for my in-person day later this month.
Excellent, thank you. We have any others?
You're muted, Kylie. There you go.
Hi,
Okay.
I'm Kylie. I go to Harford Grace High School, and I've really enjoyed my experience thus far. I have finished 1 week, and it has left me with a greater appreciation with just the inner working of government and our system, and it's been really interesting to see everything that has been debated and talked about. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the experience, and I have been following, sorry, I have it written down, SB 34. I think that is correct, about calling the police and whether a false statement about someone's race, gender, will be considered a hate crime. So I've been following that bill, and yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Cindy, do you see any others in the waiting room?
I do not.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. And now we're going to go to the delegation. If you have comments or questions for our pages, please raise your hand. I see Delegate McComas is up first.
I just wanted to remind our two young interns, or well, I guess pages, student studiers of the Maryland General Assembly. Don't forget the scholarships, the delegate and the senatorial scholarships. If you haven't applied, make sure you do. I know my deadline's April 1st. I cannot comment on my colleagues' deadlines, but it's a good thing to do, and it helps whether you get 1,000 or 200 or whatever. It helps. So just wanted to remind y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate McComas. We have Delegate Lasanti.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And Pages, great to see you again. I'm glad you're having a good time. Please let us know when you're down here, though. I didn't realize that you guys had already had a weekend. So please, if you can either Delegate Riley through the delegation office or however we coordinate that, let us know when you're down so that we can do a little quick face-to-face. Because I'd like to hear some of the outcomes of your debates. We might learn something from your perspective. Well, I know we will learn something from your perspective, but certainly you probably had a little bit deeper debates sometimes than we did. So thank you guys for being here. I'm glad to see you.
Thank you, Delegate Lasanti and Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just want to thank you guys for all your hard work. I'm certainly disappointed for you that you guys didn't get a chance to have the full experience down here. Just one more thing taken away from both of you due to COVID, but we appreciate your work and, hope you recognize it as the honor that it is. You guys had the opportunity to be in this program. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Delegate Griffith. Delegate Arkan.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Thank you both for helping us down here. Pages actually are really important. I was just wondering, what are you guys thinking about studying once you go off to college?
Liliana.
I can go first. I actually just committed to the University of Maryland College Park, so I will be close. I'll be studying government and politics at the Honors College.
Excellent. Kylie, would you like to say what you're?
Yes. I have so many interests, so that has been, a little bit of a challenge trying to narrow myself down into a major, but I'm definitely interested in either politics or the medical field as my academic major. And then, I also,
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, no shame in not knowing it. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, so.
Thank you, Delegate Arkan. Delegate Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Pages, for coming down and helping us with everything and getting the experience. We really missed you guys during COVID, and we do appreciate our Pages. So thank you a lot.
Thank you, Delegate Johnson and Delegate Shalega.
Yeah, thanks. You guys are awesome. I of course, I know Lily and Kylie. I hope to get to meet you and know you as well. And Kylie, where are you going to college?
I haven't heard back from all my schools and I haven't committed yet. So we will see in the next upcoming months where I commit to.
Well, I'm sure it'll be awesome. And if you're close, come intern with us. Come. We love interns. We'd love to have you come, especially during sessions, since you missed your awesome Page session. But hopefully, when it gets into closer weeks to the end, we can actually have you guys come in person. So God bless. Congratulations.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I did want to mention Delegate in Polaria is excused today. He had other commitments that he had to make. So he is not here this afternoon. And just for both of you, thank you for coming on. We appreciate what you do. Congratulations on becoming Pages. I know it was a vigorous application process and well worth it. And we did really, really miss you being down here. So, but hopefully everything worked out well and you learned how to use Zoom. And so congratulations. Thank you for what you do and good luck in what you do in the future. And yes, definitely like Delegate Lasanti, the next time you're down here, if you're here in person, please let us know, the office know, that we can send it out so that maybe we could, meet up with you. So thank you very much. And I understand if you have to log off, but if not, you can stay on. Okay. So since we had the little bit of online debacle going live earlier, we did bypass the prayer and the pledge just due to time constraints. So we're going to move right into one of our guest speakers we have here. Last week, he was on the line for like an hour and a half waiting for us, and we went over. So we do apologize for that. And we thank you for being patient with us and coming back today. So we do actually have our Harford County Superintendent, Sean Bolson. So he is here also with Katie Ridgway. So you can go ahead and start your presentation. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So yeah, and we're absolutely fine to kind of move to this week. You had a lot going on last week, so we listened with interest, but we're happy to adjust. And it was nice to see our pages today. It's great to know that, we have our students really engaged. Work-based learning is, we're looking to expand that dramatically under the blueprint. And this is just one of those places. It's that we give our students a chance to have real hands-on experience with what they do. And so it's just such a great thing to see. A couple things for today. On the legislative front, I wanted to introduce you to Jillian later. Now I realize we didn't invite her into this meeting. I think when we first were invited to talk, it wasn't so much legislation as blueprint and budget. And so I have with me Katie Ridgway, and she's going to speak in a little bit. She's our blueprint coordinator for the district. But we've talked in the past about the need to have someone to kind of operate in a liaison role. Once upon a time we had Kathy Carmelo, and I think you all sort of look back on a time with her fondly. I mean, she provided a great service. Jillian has been working with us this year to really keep track of the legislation, and every time new education bills come out, she's sending those to the various administrators in the system whose work is close to that and getting feedback. And I know that she's interacted with staff a fair bit already this legislative session, just to any way we can to improve the communication, the opportunity for feedback. And so if you see, a call coming in from Harford County Public Schools and it's Jillian, just know that I think she's been doing a lot behind the scenes to keep track of this and, help make this relationship a little bit stronger in terms of communicating about the bills. And again, on the front of just talking about legislation in general, I think one thing that would benefit us is when you were working on bills that really affect the school system, if you would actually send those to the assistant who works with the Board of Education, so we could actually formalize. Like sometimes the conversations behind the scenes with individual board members, the challenge with doing that is you can get some sort of quick feedback, but then you don't know if what you're getting is representing the broader board, if it's just individuals on the board. And I do know that I think the board would be open to sort of a greater dialogue about potential bills that we get ahead of. I mean, it is hard. Things move so quickly during session, and I understand that it's sometimes hard to kind of engage in those things. So we're absolutely, we're very happy to sit down with you pre-session also. I mean, we had a little chance to talk this year to see some of the things that were coming. And I remember before the session started, we pulled up all the bills that you were involved in just to take a look. So we do keep a close eye on that. With regard to specific bills, I do want to just point one out again, as so often happens. This was already cruised through the House, and in fact, one of the bills we're really concerned about on the superintendent side is HB 86. Is that right? 84. Sorry, the one that seems to make it illegal for us that it excludes students from the judicial process that we can't arrest. Now, nearly all of you opposed this, and I appreciate you for opposing that, but it did pass the House, and so we got to wait and see what happens in the Senate. But this is a concern. We work so closely with our law enforcement, but to tie their hands in some of these things is concerning. So I thank you kind of for opposing this, but at the same time, we'll continue that dialogue about how we work with law enforcement in our schools. We would just, hope to see that we don't get too restricted in that area because every case is different. And so that's part of it. Another thing legislatively, I guess, one of the places we can find some real common ground has to do with our capital projects. I think as the big capital bills have flowed through, even the medium-sized districts like ours have really been sort of excluded from the ability to access much of the funding. The $400 million that came through last year, nearly all of it went to the top few small districts. So anything you can do to advocate, even if it's not through specific legislation, but if it's working with the governor to say, hey, don't forget us on the capital side with your supplemental budget if you any surpluses or anything there, because I've said this in other settings, and I hope to work with the next administration in Harford County on the fact that we have 55 schools now with our virtual school, and we repair or replace one school every 2 years. That's a 110-year cycle, and that's not sustainable. And so, there needs to be a long-term conversation about how we come up with a more practical approach to keeping our buildings up to date. I mean, we're excited about the new buildings we have, but just to think that this beautiful Havre de Grace building now has to wait 110 years to get back on the list, it's not going to be so beautiful then. So this is one of the things that we need to figure out a more achievable solution on that front. And this is something that I think will need the legislature and the local government and the school system, community in general, all working together on this. So with those couple comments, I do want to turn it over to Ms. Ridgway to give her a couple minutes to talk about what's happening with the blueprint locally. And then I'm going to close out with a couple of the big picture sort of thoughts and concerns about blueprint. So Katie, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bolson. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. I have talked with a few of you in the past, but for some of you, this is our first face-to-face, so it's nice to meet you. My formal title is Director of Strategic Initiatives, and underneath that umbrella, there is the a part of the blueprint, which is the implementation coordinator. You might recognize me if you're tuning into our board meetings. I've been a leader in our COVID recovery, and so you might recognize my name from some of those presentations. So, and I have two daughters in the system, one of which goes to the beautiful Havre de Grace new building. She's a 7th grader. And it's nice to see our two students here. And I hear Kylie gets to enjoy that building as well. So great. So with that, I am going to just give a quick overview about the blueprint and some of the work we're doing and help frame some of that work on what it means locally. So as you're aware, the blueprint has different areas, college and career readiness. College and career readiness aligns with an initiative that Dr. Bolson started prior to the passing of the blueprint called North Star. So it aligns with work that we were already initiating, which gets us to having our students graduate with being college or career ready, so that it can be certifications through tech ed, it can be early college, it could be advanced placement. And that is something that has been one of our priorities for ever since Dr. Bolson joined us. And so that portion of the blueprint will be working to align with that work that we're already doing. Then there's the bucket for early childhood. This one is a really unique shift because it really tries to involve private pre-K providers in our offerings for our youngest learners. And that is something that in our county, we don't have private providers that currently meet the requirements of becoming one of the pre-K providers. And so that's something that for our county will be a big shift and something that we're working to collaborate, and we'll start to figure out how to get those partnerships so those private providers will participate in the early childhood portion of the blueprint. Student supports is another area, and this really aligns with a lot of the work that we've been doing with mental health, behavioral health, trauma, education, community schools, and that aspect really is in line with a lot of our current priorities anyway. So we're excited about the additional aspects that the blueprint brings for that. The next part, the career ladder. The career ladder is also something that can have a huge benefit to our system if we are able to find a way to encourage the future teachers and to encourage the teachers that we have now to keep teaching. And so the career ladder is something that is really going to work on how we raise the teaching profession and how we really recognize the teachers that are currently here and keep them doing what they do best, which is be in the classroom. The last part is the accountability, the foundational part. Dr. Bolson is going to talk a little bit about accountability, but one of the ways we're approaching that area of the blueprint is how we structure the work and how we want to be transparent and work with our community partners. So because of that, we're creating a committee structure that has a steering committee. The steering committee is going to be chaired by Dr. Bolson, Dr. Davis, and myself, and it's going to have a half of HCPS people and a half of community partners on the steering committee. That steering committee will then have 4 subcommittees that report up to it in each of the areas: North Star, which is college and career ready, early childhood, student supports, and career ladder. And each of those subcommittees is going to have a HCPS leader as a co-chair and a community partner as a co-chair. And within those committees, we're structuring it where a third of the committee is central leadership, a third of the committee is school-based personnel, and a third of the committee is community partners. And so as you can see, one of our priorities and one of our frameworks is making sure that the community, and we have different voices embedded in all of the work. That is also something that I worked on in the fall, was providing preliminary focus groups on the blueprint legislation so we could hear where all of our stakeholders kind of felt now that the bill had passed and now that the timelines were coming, how did everyone respond to this work that we have ahead? And so there is a section of the HCPS website under the superintendent's tab about blueprint. And this section has a report of our focus groups. And it shares all the information that was gathered on where everybody kind of felt as we began this work. Hopefully, we'll be able to use this as a benchmark on where we go and see how we've done based on where people had the expectations of where we were. And it's very informative. The content is written really for our committees so that they have a basis of where we are and where people feel our priorities should be. And but you are welcome to, it's public on our website and you're welcome to see it. So is information about the committee structure and some video updates that you can see about our blueprint work. So definitely subscribe to that part of the website. I guess you can't subscribe to it, but check it out because that's where I'll be keeping things up to date and making sure that we are transparent as possible and as also involving our stakeholders as much as possible. So I think that covers all the things I was going to share with you. Dr. Bolson's going to elaborate on a few more things like our accountability.
So very briefly, I know accountability always comes up, and I guess I would just sort of point out for the group that, one of the things the blueprint's done is added layers of accountability. And, I hate to say it, but layers of accountability also mean layers of bureaucracy, because now we report out to the Board of Ed, the council, the MSDE, the State Board of Education, now additionally, the Accountability Implementation Board. And then of course, we are accountable to the General Assembly as well, and we make reports back to them directly. And then, and this isn't connected, but on the capital side, we're talking to the AIC and to the Stadium Authority. So the layers of accountability seem to keep growing each year. And that is something that, we all need to be accountable. That also means bureaucracy. That means people being able to do the accountability work, and it means these sorts of things. And so that is one thing I would, I think we need to continue to engage in, because we're answering to so many different, I guess, chefs that are taking some part of this. On the budget front, one of the things we're working with MSDE, because the blueprint is so comprehensive and it kind of touches so many places of the budget. One of the things that's emerged, and I think I even shared with you, this is one of my concerns prior to getting into the blueprint, is, traditionally in the state, the funding comes as kind of a block grant from the state, and it sort of comes in one big chunk. But it started they're putting more of the money for the blueprint in restricted areas of the budget, meaning it's specified for specific things. And on the surface, it's kind of a nice way to control some details. But again, I think that also occasionally leads to both a lack of local control, but it also leads to some inefficiencies, because, if you've been in a situation where all of your budgeting is around specific budget lines, you don't have flexibility to move things, you get into bad practices like, spend it or lose it and things like that. So I do think the fact that our restricted budget, which is really where we report grants and things where the money is kind of spoken for before it even comes in the door, used to be a nominal part of our overall budget. Now it's far more significant. I think it was over $100 million this year. And so that is something for us to continue watching, where if we're kind of let this sort of bureaucratic stuff take over, I think that's something we just need to watch kind of long term. And then the other thing with MSDE is, I think, as they're getting a little more experience with the blueprint and sorting out how all these formulas work, is I feel like we're hopefully going to be in a better place soon, where we can truly understand not just the overall cost of the blueprint, but the what they expect the local share to be, because I think that's been a burden that everyone's been trying to figure out. It's really concerning. And so they are able to look a little bit, they're just kind of looking at the formulas and saying, here's what we think your local share is, because I don't really think anyone's been able to pin that down up to this point. And, you know, one thing I'd say around that, and I mean, we've all had a sense of this, but, you know, as the superintendents have been looking at the blueprint, it's dramatically underestimated what some of the costs are going to be and in the impact locally. And I think you all have had a sense of that. And that's a concern that we need to keep working on. If you look, so I like to compare two budget requests this year. Harford County's budget request is focused on salaries because we know one of the key elements of the blueprint is the increase of 10% and getting the base salary to $60,000. Now, when we couple that with what's happening with inflation, our strategy this year in our local budget was to propose a budget that focused more on the salaries. I'd say often that you have a choice in your budget. You can choose to, you know, pay for more people, or you can pay the people you have more. And this year, between inflation and the blueprint goal of increasing the salaries, you know, we've built in a higher COLA probably than others in the state, but is consistent. For example, is consistent with our sheriff's office and those sorts of things. And I think we have support in the community for this. Compare that to a place like Howard County. Howard County put about $125 million in new positions in that they've indicated are to help do the work in blueprint. I mean, I know one of the lines that jumped out at me is I think they had 7 additional positions for their HR department. Now they've taken a different approach. They're not doing as big a change for the salaries, so they may not hit that 10% increase or that $60,000 starting salary, which the blueprint requires, but they are going to, if their budget goes through, they'll have the positions to address some of the other monstrous workload that's coming with the blueprint. Again, we chose a course in Harford County. I think it will take better care of particularly our teachers who are in the positions already. But at the same time, this is really a tale of just two sides of this blueprint. We need to be doing both. We need to be increasing our capacity to address this immense workload. But we also need to make sure we're taking care of our people so that we can continue to recruit them. We chose one course. I feel good about that course, and we'll figure out how to get the help we need to do the work. But I do think that's the type of thing to watch. And I think these two budget requests just sort of highlight that in a way. And then the last thing I would close with is, the biggest issue we're looking at right now are the timelines. The AIB initially, it took them a while to get their funding, and they're not fully up and running. They didn't even meet, and some of the deadlines that they were supposed to achieve had already passed by the time they had their first meeting. They're going through discussions of adjusting their timelines. We think the majority of the proposal they have for the timeline changes are appropriate. But one thing they've left out is the career and college readiness timeline, and that's turned into a bit of a squabble between MSDE and the AIB. And I guess what we would say is the timelines in there are not in any way reasonable. This isn't, we don't want to do the work. If you take, for example, saying that you're going to design, a bunch of courses for a certain pathway, you need to back map things. You need to design the courses. You need to sign the kids up for them, and then you need to get them in. Our kids have already signed up for courses for next year. And so, the fact that the timeline doesn't recognize that we haven't had a chance to go through any of those steps. So it's not about, unwillingness to do the work. Our folks were working, very well with HCC to move things forward as fast as we can. But some of these blueprint timelines do need addressing. And so the degree to which you guys are able to influence or be involved in those conversations would be helpful.
Great.
So with that, I'll turn it over. I know we went a little long today, but happy to answer any questions. And it's just good to see everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Bolson, and also for Katie Ridgway for joining us today. I will open it up to questions from the delegation at this time. Delegate Lasanti.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Bolson and Ms. Ridgway for being here today. A couple quick, I guess one question, one comment, I guess. The question on when you talked about the budget and locking money down into certain line items, can't you still come to the county council and request a transfer between those line items?
It's a little different when you're talking about things in the restricted budget because those are things where the council doesn't have the authority. So we can change things within the line items, for example, fund balance. So we do those major transfers and we go to the council for those. Right. But the restricted budget, if they're restricted at the state level, the council doesn't have the authority to, change in some of those areas. And again, and the state's still figuring it out. Like
Right.
they moved some things from what used to be traditionally in a special ed restricted grant. They put them in more of our base funding, and then they took some other things and put them back in.
Right.
So
So I just want to draw that piece out because I think that we can fix that legislatively because I think we want that local control to be able to work within the budgeted line items. And I just want to make a quick comment. Your concern about school construction, that has always been a big issue. And I'm going to point everybody, and I'm going to send it around. In 2009, when I was on the county council, this issue became front and center. And I passed a bill that basically created a bipartisan commission on school construction. Delegate McComas, if you remember, you were a member of that commission, and we actually put a report out in 2011. And one of the outcomes of that report was a comprehensive education facilities master plan that was ordered to be done by the school system in cooperation with the county government, that actually identified each school system, what their infrastructure needs were, and a 25-year plan on build out. So I'd like to circle back around that because a lot of work went in that. I think actually Senator Jennings was on the commission with us. So we brought everybody from the state level to the county level together to do this. And I want to make sure that it didn't fall off the table because that's a very critical planning piece for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Lasanti. Delegate Shalega.
Thanks. Katie, you mentioned some work groups that you're putting together where there's going to be a partnership with parent and the system. How are you selecting those parents, and how do those parents get on a list to be selected? And you know, what information do you have on that side of it?
It's not just parents, it's community stakeholders. So some business partners, partners that nonprofit partners that work in those areas. And then we have a parent advisory council that we solicited, the ask of who was interested. And that's how we got people on the focus groups and started getting people through the pipeline who might be interested in being on these committees. And so we will publish, once the committees are finished, we'll publish the makeup of the committees so that you can see, like, the YMCA and Boys and Girls Club and all the various partners who are going to be participating in the groups. And there'll be parents and teachers, et cetera. So you'll be able to see all that work.
So is it too late for a parent that would want to get involved, or
it's not too late forever, but we do have our initial groups forming. There's going to be other opportunities to participate. So other work groups, other focus groups. And then we also are going to have a long-term plan of sustainability of when people come off on how we get people back on. So all of that work and that infrastructure is happening right now. So, and we're close to being able to, move forward with it and get started.
All right. Well, if you can let us know, maybe send an email to Chair Riley, letting us know how, I have parents that are contacting me every day, who want a place to plug in. And this is the first I've heard of it. So I would guess they haven't heard of it either. So thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Shalega. Delegate McComas?
Just real quick. I would like to know, Dr. Bolson, what percentage of the mandated spending that's kind of tied down to specific projects from the blueprint is now part of your budget? In other words, is it 5%, 10%, 25% of the total budget? Just, kind of a ballpark.
I'm not sure I dare do a ballpark if I didn't pull up my budget slides before we started this. Because part of the problem is it's all looped in, and half of it's in the mandated, half of it's in the restricted budget, and other chunks of it are in the more general operating budget. Let me get that back to you. It's really been hard to tease out because some of it is work we're already doing, so it doesn't feel like new stuff, and other of it are things that are new. Like, for example, we just opened the new Judy Center at Hall's Crossroads. That was blueprint. It's a great thing for us to have and be doing, and that came in kind of a restricted line. But there's other things that just got folded into the general funding, the foundation formula. So, but let me send back, and we'll copy everyone. We'll send back just sort of a quick analysis of where Blueprint is in the budget.
I think where I'm trying to go with this is the concern that Maryland is really American miniature, and all the different counties and schools and areas are very different, and they have different, you know, I mean, it's like going into another state or sometimes another country, you know. And I guess what I'm concerned about is the fact that Annapolis is just trying to, you know, one size fits all concern. And if we're going down that road, the other thing, the bill you mentioned is actually HB 84 that you're concerned about. And there was something else I was going to say, but I guess maybe if you could, are the PTAs part of Miss Ridgway's? Okay. All right. Because at least that gets some parents involved. All right. Yeah, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Delegate McComas and Delegate Arcan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Dr. Bolson. Could you just update us again on what the current quarantine protocols are for our students?
Dr. Bolson, would you like me to take
Let
that
Katie
one?
do that one. That's her expertise. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So right now we are still following a 5-day isolation and a 5-day quarantine. So, and then quarantine in terms of our close contact process, we're just doing household contacts. And so we are not actively seeking close contacts beyond household contacts. And that is a 5-day quarantine when identified.
And that's regardless of vaccination status?
It would be part of the close contact identification does include vaccination status.
So there's a different policy for children who are fully vaccinated and those who are not, or no?
No, it's one decision tree that follows along a lot of factors. What type of contact was it? How long was it? What is the vaccination status? What is the booster status? What is the timeline of when you were together? There's a large amount of like decision trees that go. And so depending on your answers to each one, there is a different path, but it's only being done for household contact. So if you have siblings, you have 2 sisters, one's COVID positive, then that determination is happening for the other sister. It is not happening for other students in the classes.
Okay, that's good to know. Could you send us a copy of the decision tree so we can see what it looks like?
Yeah, so that comes from MDH and MSDE, and they are updating it right now because of all of the changes with the masks, et cetera, but I can send you the current copy of it as it stands.
Okay, yeah, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Arcan. And I had one follow-up, and I guess either Dr. Bolson or Katie. I know Dr. Bolson mentioned, you know, the accountability portion of the blueprint and everything and all the agencies that you have to report to. As you were going through them, I think I wrote down like 6 of them. So with those reports, are they all requesting a different information to where they all have to be like completely different reports, or can they like all be one report and just ship them to all 6 boards?
Well, there's some overlap, but it's just that I guess we just want to say that this is pretty well covered. I mean, I know there's always accountability because we know, I mean, the education school system is important to so many people. And there's also a lot of varying opinions on what should be happening in schools. And, but just, I guess I would say is sometimes looking at the different places that we are accountable to is important. But like I said, there is overlap, but you know, it doesn't come without a cost is what I was trying to suggest.
Okay,
that
right.
Bureaucracy comes with this. And
Exactly. All right. I agree. All right. Thank you both for coming. I don't see any other questions. Again, thank you for 2 weeks in a row, you know, hanging with us and answering our questions. You did a phenomenal job. Thank you. And we will see you back in Harford County.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. All right. We now have a couple other guests with us from our federal positions. I think we have a spokesperson from all 4. We have, I believe, Senator Ben Cardin's office. We have Jessica Cook. So Jessica, if you would just like give us an update on what's going on in Washington.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Riley and Vice Chair McComas and the delegation for having me here this morning. I am going to go ahead and put in some of my contact information in the chat, just so everybody has that as well. I am Senator Cardin's Central Maryland representative, and we are in the process of making contacts for the fiscal year 23 earmarks that are going to be rolling out. So we've contacted Harford County government, municipalities, and nonprofits and community groups to let them know that there could possibly be some money available for qualifying projects. So the expectation is that those projects be submitted by the beginning of about April. Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cook, for joining us and giving us that update from the office of Senator Van Carden. We now have the office of Senator Van Highland, and we have Bart Kennedy, I believe, with us. Bart?
Good morning, Delegate Riley and the delegation team from Harford County. Thank you. Glad to be here. So I won't repeat what Jessica has repeated. I do want to remind everyone we are still operating under a CR, a continuing resolution, which is the FY21 budget. And so what that means is any congressionally directed / earmark requests that were put in requested last year, they've not been funded yet. And should we have a continuing CR through the end of the fiscal year, all those earmark requests will go away. So those will not sustain. So, and what that further means is that for federal grant programs, we are, because we're still operating under a CR from FY21, the program guidance for many of those programs has not been finalized yet for FY22 until a federal budget is signed. If we operate under continuing CR to the end of the fiscal year, that means that we will be operating under the FY21 budget for all those federal grant programs and the guidance as well for those. So I do know that the federal agencies, they are ramped up and ready to have the FY22 program guidance issued, but we're on hold. The CR continues through March 11th, and we're hoping that we get something done by then.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. We appreciate it. We did unfortunately have our first bell ring. I know we generally have about 10 minutes to leave here and get over there. But thank you very much. We'll see. We also have the office of Congressman Andy Harris, if someone's there. Cindy, do we have anyone from Congressman Harris's office? Okay. How about Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger?
Yes, Daniela Aguara.
Okay, Daniela, would you like to have a few words? Thank you.
Yes, good morning, delegation team. Thank you so much for having me. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, you were missing a little bit, but go ahead. Okay,
a few quick updates. So if earmarks were included in the FY22 omnibus bill, the $250,000 that our office secured for the APG Discovery Center should hopefully be good to go. We're hearing that the House could take up the spending package as early as next Tuesday, or this upcoming Tuesday, and we had two CPFs, $525,000 for the Harford County-based Ashley Addiction Treatment Center and $250,000 for a world-class science, technology, and heritage center known as Discovery Center at Water's Edge in Harford County's Bell Camp. So those are the updates from our office.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and if there's any information that you would like to, send to the delegation, please send it to the delegation email address, and we can get that out to the delegations. I mean, that's great news, of bringing back, funds for Harford County and our residents. So, keep us up to date, and we'll spread that information. And thank you for joining us. I don't know if I see any hands from any of the delegation for a quick word. Okay. Thank you so much.